It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of October 27th, 1995. We got 7 movies to look at today, so let's not waste any more time. Let's just jump on into it, and we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend because this wasn't really a big hit. I take that back. It was considered a financial success, but it's a very controversial movie, and we're going to delve into why in just a second. This is Powder.
An unborn child experiences everything that the mother experiences. The neighbors talk about him like he's some kind of a phantom. The old folks may have kept him down there like some kind of a family secret.
What's your name?
Powder.
I've never seen anything like him.
Test shows that you're a genius. You have the most advanced intellect in the history of humankind.
You took me from my home to a place you know I'll be unhappy. Wondering if you've done the right thing.
You read minds, too?
Why you look like that? You look like some kind of vampire from outer space or something. What are you doing?
Before we talk about the movie, let's talk about that controversy I was talking about before. This is directed by Victor Salva, who you may know as the director of the Jeepers Creepers movies. But when he directed this movie, there was a controversy, and he had been convicted of molesting a 12-year-old child actor during the production of the film that he did prior to this, which was Clown House back in 1988. And he was actually sentenced to 3 years imprisonment and released after 15 months. Disney officials reported that they learned of Salva's crime only after the production of the film had begun and stressed that there were no minors on the set for the film. When Powder actually was released, the victim, Nathan Forrest Winters, actually came forward again in attempts to get the film boycotted and to boycott the film and protest its release. But as you can see, it didn't really work because the film eventually did come out, and it was a decent hit financially, but critically, it got a mixed bag. And judging from this trailer, you can kind of see why. It's got a unique idea to it, but when you watch this movie, all you can think of is it's just Edward Scissorhands with more of a supernatural element to it. I mean, there are some things in here that could be pretty interesting about it. Like, the performances, I think, are okay. Sean Patrick Flannery, I think, does a pretty good job in this role as the title character. So does Jeff Goldblum and Mary Steenburgen, but it just can't get away from the fact that it's pretty much a knockoff of Edward Scissorhands in a way. Like, it feels like that type of a movie, except let's add more of a supernatural element. Instead of the fact that he has these scissors for hands, let's make him into like this unusual creature who has these incredible telepathic and paranormal powers to him. In a way, it's kind of you could probably make the argument that this is kind of like an X-Men prequel sort of a way. Like, if they had gone that route, I think this movie could have been a little bit more interesting, but other than that, though, it's just a movie that has some good ideas to it, but just the wrong execution of it. It just kind of falls into predictable territory. It's the movie where everybody looks to this person as the savior or the one who's going to change this world forever, and it's just kind of like, it's not really all that interesting or that exciting. I thought the performances overall were okay, but it's a largely forgettable movie, honestly. I saw it many years ago, and honestly, for the most part, I forgot most of it until I saw the trailer again. And, yeah, really, that's pretty much all I can say about it. It's a film that, some good ideas, but not enough to really recommend it. So that's Powder. Let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is the pairing I think everyone was looking forward to seeing. Eddie Murphy and Wes Craven working together on a movie, and that movie was Vampire in Brooklyn.
For centuries, they have roamed the earth. Fearsome creatures of the night, endlessly seeking to satisfy an unyielding hunger. Now, the world's last vampire is about to encounter something infinitely more terrifying than himself. Brooklyn.
Interesting. I've been stabbed, and I've been hanged. Even broken on the rack once, but I've never been shot before. Kind of itches a little.
Paramount Pictures presents. If you're hungry, I'll run you down to KFC down the street and hit you off with a 2-piece.
I already had Italian.
Eddie Murphy,
Do I look like I would bite you?
Angela Bassett,
You bet not. Not after the day I've had.
Eddie Murphy,
Everything! Come on! Move it! Yeah, right. There's a lot of love in this room. Look at this.
and Eddie Murphy.
Bottom line, brothers and sisters, what I'm trying to tell you tonight, that evil is good. Let me hear y'all say it. Evil is good. That's right.
If he fails here,
Quickest way to a woman's heart? Through the church.
It's actually through the rib cage, but that's a bit messy.
being undead
You got the dropsies.
won't be worth living.
I'm a cop. If you try anything funny, I'll shoot you.
Vampire in Brooklyn.
I would love to have you for dinner.
I say the crossover that everyone's been waiting for, Eddie Murphy and Wes Craven sarcastically, but Vampire in Brooklyn. This was actually the final film that Eddie Murphy did when he was under that exclusive contract with Paramount Pictures that began all the way back with 48 Hours in 1982 and ended up with this movie. So that's 13 years worth of movies with one studio, even though he would make a couple movies here and there with other studios as well. But what an it's an intriguing idea, to say the least. Having somebody like Wes Craven working with Eddie Murphy on a film that has a lot of good ideas to it. At the time of its release, it got negative reviews. It was considered by many as one of the worst movies of the year, and everybody thought that this was Eddie Murphy's low point. But I mean, Eddie Murphy made some bad movies before this, and certainly bad movies after this. And I think more than everyone expected, this movie was not a success at the box office, but as it has gone on in years, this movie has been regarded as kind of a cult classic and has been reevaluated as a very unique experience of a film. Like, so everyone looks at Wes Craven's direction on this, the performances by Eddie Murphy and Angela Bassett, the chemistry and the humor overall, and you know, honestly, I didn't see this movie for the longest time. I think I finally saw it 20 years after its release. I found a copy of this movie at a CD warehouse for, I think it was like $7. I figured it's Eddie Murphy. I mean, it can't be that bad of a film. So I checked it out, and you know, honestly, I was kind of surprised by it. I think it actually is a lot better than people give it credit for. It has a lot of intriguing ideas. It actually has a lot of ideas that would eventually work much better in the far superior The Nutty Professor movie, which was the film that everyone thought was the resurrection of Eddie Murphy's career at that point, which it kind of was for a little bit. But like I said, there are some good ideas here. You know what this movie kind of reminded me of? I thought about it recently, and it kind of reminded me of Innocent Blood, that John Landis movie that was also kind of had a similar concept to it, that was not a big hit when it came out, but has since gone on to have a cult following to it. I think this movie definitely has that same feel to it. There are definitely a lot of funny moments in this movie. I think a lot of them are in the trailer, like when he gets up and he's rubbing the gun wound on him. He's like, kind of itches a little. That stuff is kind of funny. There are some funny lines in this. There are some pretty good makeup effects too. Like, this movie, it's not a complete waste. I just don't feel like it's met everything that they kind of wanted to set up for. Like, I felt like there was a lot more going into it that eventually ended up being on screen. Like, there are things about it that I think do really work, and it's a very unique film for Wes Craven, because you know him as mostly horror movies for the most part, and this is his attempt to do a horror movie and a comedy at the same time, and I thought it worked for a good chunk of it. I'm not going to say it's an all-around winner overall. I think it definitely has flaws that are very notable, but it definitely is a much better movie than I think give it credit for. Like I said, I put it on the same level as something like, now I completely forgot the name, Innocent Blood. I think it's a movie that you should give a chance. You should give it a chance again, because you might actually be surprised by it. I feel like it's a movie that deserves more attention as the years have gone on. I think it definitely is much better than you give it credit for. Definitely not one of Eddie Murphy's better films, but a lot better than I think a lot of people give it credit for. So that's Vampire in Brooklyn. So let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Sigourney Weaver and Holly Hunter in Copycat.
John killer is the suffering and death of another human being. And as his determination builds to take another life, he plans in obsessive detail what props he'll bring, what knots he'll tie, Let me ask you guys something. What turns you on?
A criminal psychiatrist.
There's a serial killer out there who strangled 3 women. He's gonna do it again.
A homicide detective.
Would you work with us on this?
You're kidding, right?
I do not want you discussing this case with her in any shape, way, or form.
It's the Boston Strangler.
You telling me this guy's copycatting a serial killer who's been dead for
20 years.
You're looking for an intelligent white male, 20 to 30 years old, socially functional.
Everything's different. Different guy.
He's switched from DeSalvo to Bianchi and Buono, the hillside strangler.
One man is copying the most notorious killers in history, one at a time.
He's sending you letters like he's daring us to nail him.
If he wants to be famous, he has to be caught.
I'm death and life to you, Doc.
We know that Mr. Cullen was safe in San Quentin last night, so how come Miss Brooks shows up under the mattress?
Together, 2 women must stop him
The man who has killed 5 women in this city was just in your apartment.
before he kills again.
All I know to do is change your locks, tighten up your security, and pray.
Sigourney Weaver, Holly Hunter, and Harry Connick Jr. in a deadly game of cat
Here, kitty.
and mouse. Copycat.
Another one of those movies I always heard about as a kid, but obviously because I was 6 years old at the time, I wouldn't have been able to see it. But the years have gone on. I've never really had the real thought process to actually go watch this movie again. But the overall thinking behind the movie from the trailers that I've seen is that it could be something interesting. I've never seen it before, but it could be something interesting. This idea that you have Harry Connick Jr. playing this killer who basically imitates all these different serial killers, from Ted Bundy to Jeffrey Dahmer to the Boston Strangler to David Berkowitz, all these different people in history, and it could be a very interesting concept too. I mean, Harry Connick Jr. can be a pretty decent actor if you give him the right role to work with, and I don't know. I don't know. In this trailer, it's kind of I think he might be playing it a little bit too crazy, or a little bit too over the top. But again, I haven't seen the movie, so I can't really say too much about it. But I'll give it this though. It has some pretty good reviews to it. It actually was honored as honored by the AFI American Film Institute in the 100 Years, 100 Thrills category when they did that list in 2001. So I'm just getting this information off of here because I need to know this information to talk about it. But like I said, I haven't seen the movie. It definitely has some promise to it, but I've never really had the real interest in actually checking it out for myself. So maybe one day I definitely will, because it does have some pretty good actors to it and it has a good concept, but I really can't say too much more about it. So that's Copycat. Let me know what you thought about it down below. With that said, let's move on to the next movie, and that is Patrick Swayze in 3 Wishes.
Magic.
Of course I believe in magic.
This holiday season, Savoy Pictures and Reicher Entertainment invite you to share the wonder and the magic of the movie Jeffrey Lyons of Sneak Previews calls Delightful. Take your kids to see it.
I saw you.
3 Wishes, rated PG, starts Friday at theaters everywhere.
Another one of those movies that I used to see the trailer for a lot on TV, and I never really had an interest in seeing the film. And I still haven't had an interest in seeing the film because I haven't heard any good things about it. It looks pretty generic, quite honestly, and Patrick Swayze has been in some good movies since he's outside of Ghost and Dirty Dancing, but I feel like he's kind of slumming it here. You also have Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, Joseph Mazzello from Jurassic Park, Michael O'Keefe from Caddyshack, Diane Verona, Neil McDonough. Some notable names are in this film, but this director, Martha Coolidge, has made some pretty good movies, but this is kind of in the stretch where a lot of those movies were not as strong as they could have been, but I don't know. Like, I didn't really had any interest in seeing this movie whatsoever, and judging by the fact that it doesn't have any good reviews or wasn't a big hit, probably for the best that I didn't get to see it back then, and probably another reason why I probably will never see it. I don't know. It just doesn't really appeal to me all that much, so... quick one on that one. That's 3 Wishes. Let's move on to the next movie, and that is Woody Allen's Mighty Aphrodite.
Hi!
When Lenny Weinrib and his wife adopted a baby,
If there's any greatness in my hands, let it pass into your body. Get a grip on yourself.
they never planned
Hi.
on adopting the mother.
You want to go inside, take a shower? You've been studying me up close and personal?
From Woody Allen
I met a guy I think would be absolutely great for you.
This is the left. This is the right. Right?
Leave it.
Mighty Aphrodite.
This is the film that Mira Sorvino won her Academy Award on, and rightfully so, because she really is the best thing about the film. I mean, she's wonderful in this performance. She's probably the most entertaining prostitute you'll see on screen since Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. I mean, that's pretty good company there. But the screenplay basically is inspired by the story of Pygmalion. It is about Woody Allen's search for his genius adopted son's biological mother, finding out that she's basically a dim-witted prostitute, and it works in a lot of ways. It really works on a number of ways. Not just Mira Sorvino, but the cast overall is pretty good. F. Murray Abraham, Woody Allen, Helena Bonham Carter, Olympia Dukakis, Michael Rappaport, David Ogden Stiers, Peter Weller, Jack Warden. Just a really solid cast overall. And this is probably one of my favorite movies from Woody Allen in the 1990s. And it's mostly because of what Mira Sorvino brings to the table. I mean, she is the star of this movie. And she really is the spotlight of the film. If you're going to watch this movie, watch it for her. She's fantastic in it. And it's just like I said, it's just an overall really funny movie. I really enjoy it a lot. Mighty Aphrodite, I highly recommend checking it out. I think it's one of Woody Allen's 10 best movies he's ever made as a filmmaker. So that's Mighty Aphrodite. Let's move on to another really good movie that had some actors that won Academy Awards in it. Actually just won. Nicolas Cage and Elizabeth Shue in Leaving Las Vegas.
Artist Pictures proudly presents the most celebrated motion picture of 1995, Leaving Las Vegas. Winner, 4 Golden Globe nominations. Winner, Best Actor, Nicolas Cage. Winner, Best Actress, Elizabeth Shue. Winner, Best Director, Mike Figgis. And winner, Best Picture of the Year, Leaving Las Vegas, a love story. Rated R. Now playing at select theaters.
So Nicolas Cage stars as an alcoholic, a suicidal alcoholic in Los Angeles who has lost his family. He's recently been fired. He decides to basically move to Las Vegas to essentially drink himself to death. And he brings a supply of beer, liquor, and gets into his BMW and drives down. And he ends up meeting with a sex worker played by Elizabeth Shue. And the story basically follows their relationship. And it's really one of Nicolas Cage's best performances. I think this movie really shows why he deserved to win the Oscar for this. And Elizabeth Shue is very good in here, too. It's a really solid film about these two people who are very much polar opposites, but as they meet together, they eventually have this interesting relationship that keeps you invested throughout the course of the film. Mike Figgis, I think, does a very good job handling the script and directing the film. In a way, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Lost in Translation. It kind of has that same concept, except you replace Nicolas Cage and Elizabeth Shue with Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson and set it in Japan instead of Las Vegas, and you get kind of the same concept. But, I mean, both movies are great, but this movie really, I think, is definitely one of Nicolas Cage's most strongest films. And it's interesting that this film was shot in Super 16mm instead of the usual 35mm. And it gives it that nice grainy look to it that feels a little bit dated, but at the same time feels more modernized in this situation. I thought it worked really well here, and it's a damn good movie. It's a really damn good film. One of the best movies from 1995. I can't recommend it enough. Leaving Las Vegas. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out.
I feel really weird tonight. Like something's gonna happen.
Me too.
What's your name anyway? Xavier. Is it cool if I just call you X?
There's something evil about him.
About 86? 66. Big up, Growling.
What are you gonna do? Shoot us?
So I just realized I forgot to tell you what the last movie was before we got to the trailer, but you saw it right there. That's a little bit of the Doom generation, basically following two teenage lovers, played by Rose McGowan and James Duvall, who pick up a young, handsome driver named Xavier Reed, played by Jonathan Scheck, and after Xavier accidentally kills a store clerk, the trio embarks on a journey full of sex, violence, and people from Amy's past. It's billed as a heterosexual movie by Greg Araki, who's the director of the film. And it's actually the second film of his Teenage Apocalypse film trilogy, the first one being Totally Fucked Up, and the last one being Nowhere, which I never covered the first one on there. And because of that, I've never really seen these movies, so I don't really know what to feel about these movies because I've never really seen them. And it's not for a lack of trying. I just never really knew these movies even existed until I did the research on this, and so that's why I never really took the opportunity to look at those films. And I don't know, I've never been given a real good reason to actually check these movies out, honestly. Like, they could be interesting, but I just never had the real urge to go see them. Maybe one day I definitely will, but not right now. So that's pretty much all I got for you on this one, The Doom Generation. So that wraps this one up. So on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We'll jump into November on the next episode with 6 movies, including William Baldwin and Cindy Crawford in the action bomb Fair Game, Holly Hunter and leading an ensemble cast in Jodie Foster's directorial effort Home for the Holidays, Christina Ricci and Anna Klumsky in Gold Diggers, The Secret of Bear Mountain, Total Eclipse, The Kingdom, and The Business Affair. So 6 movies to look at next time around, and we'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.